You've heard these stories before. The ones whispered by old-timers in quiet towns, the kind dismissed as folklore and nonsense. Tales of things that don't belong in the world we know. Creatures with claws too long, teeth too sharp, and eyes that seem to understand far more than they should. You tell yourself they're just legends, just eerie bedtime stories meant to keep children from wandering too far. But what if they aren't? What if some stories are warnings? Somewhere, deep in the forest, something watches. Something waits. It doesn't come every year. It doesn't have to. It follows a cycle, a pattern as old as the trees themselves. Every decade, in years that end in 7, something stirs in the woods. Something ancient, something that was never meant to exist. They call it the Dogman. I grew up in a small town pressed against the edge of an endless forest, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked and kids played outside until the last light faded from the sky. But there was one rule that no one dared to break. When the year ended in a 7, you stayed inside after dark. I never understood why. It was just one of those things that got passed down, an unspoken truth woven into the fabric of the town. People never explained it, they just followed it. Old folks hung iron charms above their doors. Parents kept their children close. The sheriff always seemed uneasy when asked about it, shifting in his chair like there was something he wanted to say, but knew he couldn't. I thought it was nothing more than superstition. Then 2017 came, and I learned the truth. That summer, I was 16, just young enough to be reckless, just old enough to believe I was untouchable. My friends and I had spent years rolling our eyes at the town's strange traditions, laughing whenever someone mentioned the rule about staying inside. So on the night of July 7th, we broke it. It was me, Chris, and Jake. We slipped out just after midnight, cutting through backyards and slipping into the woods with nothing but our phones and a single flashlight. The heat of the night was thick, the air buzzing with cicadas. The trees stretched high above us, pressing in from all sides. At first, it felt like any other summer night. The forest was alive with the usual sounds of rustling leaves and distant crickets. But as we wandered deeper, something changed. The air thickened, heavy and suffocating. The forest fell silent. No wind, no insects, no movement. Just us, standing in the middle of the trees, realizing too late that we were not alone. Then we heard it, a low, guttural growl. Chris turned, his flashlight shaking as the beam cut through the darkness. It landed on nothing but trees. The growl came again, closer now. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a wolf. It was deeper, guttural, laced with something that didn't belong in an animal, something almost human. Jake whispered that we should turn back. We didn't. The growl turned into a snarl. Then came the heavy thud of something hitting the ground, something big. Chris aimed the flashlight toward the sound, the light flickering against the darkness. Then we saw it. Crouched at the edge of the clearing, its body loomed impossibly large, its limbs too long. It was shaped like a man, but everything about it was wrong. Its skin was dark, stretched and mottled with patches of fur. Clawed hands flexed at its sides, and its face, God, its face. A canine muzzle jutted forward, lined with jagged yellowed teeth. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural sickly light, locking onto us with a cold intelligence that made my stomach drop. This wasn't a myth. It was real. It was the Dogman, and it was watching us. It moved too fast. One second it was crouched in the trees, the next it was towering over us. The air reeked of blood and rot as it leaned in. Jake screamed and ran. Chris dropped the flashlight. I didn't run. I couldn't. I stood there, frozen in place, my body betraying me. The Dogman inched closer, its breath washing over my face, hot and rancid, its lips curled back, revealing far too many teeth. Then it spoke. Not in words, not in a growl, in something in between. A sound that clawed its way into my mind and took root. A sound that was unmistakable. Laughter. And then it was gone. The second it vanished, the night snapped back into place. The cicadas returned. The wind whispered through the trees. The air lightened. Chris grabbed my arm and yanked me toward town. Neither of us spoke. We never saw Jake again. The sheriff organized a search, but they never found anything. No footprints, no clothes, no body. It was like he had never existed. The town didn't talk about it. They didn't have to. They already knew. In years that end in 7, the Dogman hunts. It watches. It waits. And if you're foolish enough to ignore the warnings, it takes. It's 2027 now. I haven't stepped foot in those woods since that night. But sometimes when the air is still and the cicadas fall silent, I hear it. A low, guttural growl just beyond the tree line. Waiting. Tonight's story couldn't have happened without the help of the lovely supporters on screen. Your generosity keeps these stories alive, and I can't thank you enough. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new upload. And if you want to support the channel and get access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes updates, and even early story releases, consider joining my Patreon. Every bit helps keep the lights on and the stories coming. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and stay out of the woods.